Ekse, eitahola, ninjani emakhaya. Usabela Mfokandabase lo. This is your favorite podcast, iDurban Network. Ngani zakwethu ke siyabonga ukuthi lo niyasilandela nje, lo niyaqhubeka niyalisupporta lolu hlelo. Kanti ke namhlanje nginiphathele uThobani Mfokazikalala, who's a political commentator. Of course, we'd be zooming into the Sonia, zooming into the MK, and also check up to the geopolitics. Nyazi ke kuningi okwenzakalayo emazweni aphesheya. Ngaphandle ke kokuchitha isikhathi, asibingelele Mfokazikalala. Ngani yakwethu?
Mfokandamase asibingelele nababukeli bakho. Sithokoza ukuba nani lana kulomsebenzi omuhle niwenza ukuzama ukushape indlela esicabanga ngayo kuleso.
Mfowethu siyabonga. Zikalala besinesonya nje einsukwini ezingaki la umongameli wezwe kade ethula inkulumo yakhe ngendlela yokuthi kuyiwa kanjani phambili. Perhaps umbuzo wokuqala nje, what do you make of his speech in the State of the Nation address?
Mntaka baba angizoqala la. Off the dome, I would say maybe we've heard this before. I would say it sounds like we are saying the same things we've said before. It sounds like maybe we could have just been emailed this or a WhatsApp message or a voice note. Why I say this is because the stature of what the State of the Nation address is.
Yes.
And a consistent repetition of the same message without a strategic shift, in particular in social issues.
Yes.
Or what we call crimes, what you call safety and things like that, and water and things like that. But where does this come from if we try to get a bit deeper? It's because it seems as if to me, because of the mention of the things that I spoke about, economic stagnation, unemployment and all those things, it seems that the president can hear the cries of the people. But unfortunately, he wants to wipe those tears using the same techniques that have been used for the past 31 years.
Same mechanism.
Same mechanisms. And maybe not same mechanism, but same strategic focus.
Jeez.
The orientation of our government is a hands-off government. Right? In a government that says, for example, in unemployment, we must create a conducive environment for business to thrive so that jobs could be created. But let's go back. Are businesses or private capital, are they in the business of creating jobs? No. Jobs are a byproduct of what they do. But it's not their strategic focus.
Yes.
They want to make profit and accumulate wealth. And that will mean spending less and producing more so that you can sell more. Who makes the decision in this country on what to produce, how to produce, where to produce, and for who to produce? It's still in the hands of private capital. But unfortunately, the president still stays in his speeches that we are a developmental state, but fails to orientate the state in that fashion, which will mean place the state at the center of driving development in this country. Then you have got issues where, for example, in Cape Flats, I think it's an interesting development.
Yes.
Where we try to deploy the army now, that the announcement is going to deploy the army. It's correct. Maybe because of the violence in the country, you need to bring in some heavy-hand law enforcement first.
Yes.
Right? But to maintain, then the president must speak about what are going to be the socio-economic proposals or programs or projects that are going to be implemented in places like Cape Flats, in places like Inanda, the inner city of Durban and Joburg, the townships around the country, to now regenerate these places so that they become livable places where people are able to live and create livelihoods. But then another question will be, does the township, the way it is structured, is it created to enhance human potential and human development? So those are the things that I think the president should miss an opportunity to speak about. And there is, for me, I think, of course, maybe later we'll speak about what happens in the inner cities of South Africa and what we could do to try and create a more safe environment. But in short, my brother, without wasting your time, interesting, but we've heard this before. Interesting, but does it deserve the fanfare that is created about it? Interesting, but what are you going to, what is the leadership refocus that is going to happen
Yes.
to implement this thing that we almost have been speaking about. You see, the nice thing that South Africa is also mastered, maybe not nice, but the one thing that South Africa is mastered is the ability to say the same thing using different ways.
Which is a huge problem.
Yeah, we say public-private partnership, social compact, inclusive growth, economic growth. We lose so many terms, and sometimes we just mean the same thing.
Yeah. Don't you think Zikalala, his idea of neoliberal is also, I mean, contributing to this failure?
I mean, that's the point I was making. When I speak about the idea that our president, or let me just say this president, because I don't want to also blame him for a strategic and political focus of the country that has happened even before him. But unfortunately, with Ramaphosa, like many others before him, you are not speaking about someone who just arrived in the scene. You're almost speaking about someone who was almost at the beginning of everything that we know today.
True.
As liberation, or what people like us will call, as the democratic breakthrough came in 1994, decisions had to be made in terms of how do we make sure that the liberation aspirations and imperatives are able to be achieved in this democratic, using the state now. Remember that this country is run by a liberation movement, and there are many of them, liberation movement, the PACs, as happened, but a liberation movement like the African National Congress had liberation objectives to say this is what a liberated country will look like. They went to the bush.
Yes.
They used international diplomacy, international pressure to deliver liberation aspirations. 1994 or the 90s gave us an opportunity for what people would call the second phase or second transition of the struggle, where the revolutionaries or the liberators were now administering the state, which means the state could now be used to further the imperatives of the struggle. Now, the question that we must ask ourselves is, if you look at the objectives of the struggle of the ANC, the ANC says Freedom Charter is the Bible of their revolution. Many people disagree with the Freedom Charter, many agree with it. It's a story for another day. But let's focus on the fact that the ANC, the Freedom Charter, is the Bible of the revolution. Now, has the ANC built a state that has got the capacity to deliver Freedom Charter imperatives? I don't think so. I mean, of course, in some way, the Freedom Charter has guided, but I don't think it has built a state capable of delivering what it aspires to do. In fact, by adopting a neoliberal, free market, stature right type of economy and political structure, they have almost danced with the Freedom Charter, but didn't take it home.
Would you then say we are better off with communism?
Yes.
We can perform better.
Yes. For liberation imperatives, yes. I mean, some of us are socialist, communist in terms of our ideological outlook. So yes, we'll agree that there needs to be a centering of the state. There needs to be a suppressing of the monopoly and dictatorship of the private capital interest in the country to make sure that the previously disadvantaged are able to be brought into the center of development. You can't do that. You can't. It's almost a something. What was the right word? It's incompatible to want to liberate the working class, poor, peasants, or what people would call in Marxist term the proletariat, right?
Yes.
And the peasants, while maintaining the strategic control of the economy and the sector and the strategic sectors of the economy with private capital and private interest. It is incompatible. It can't work because these people's aspirations and class interests are different. The working class is seeking to be able to make a living, to be able to claim more of the surplus value created by the market.
Yes.
The working class seems wants more democracy in the decision making on what to produce, who to produce, and when to produce. On the other side, you've got people who are diametrically opposed to those interests. They want to make the decisions to produce alone. They want to they want to decide how much of the surplus value the working class gets without the influence of the working class. So, as some of us are saying, the majority of the country is working class. Why is it that the working class can't participate and make decisions in terms of what gets to produce? In particular, because it is their hands, their efforts, their blood, sweat, and tears that create the products of this market. It is the working class that goes to the belly of the earth and brings back the gold, but doesn't decide how much it's going to get sold for. That's why some of us then lean towards a more socialist or communist state to say the working class must be given that opportunity. Of course, I know maybe someone will say, no, but communism has failed. But the issue here is, where has capitalism succeeded? In harnessing human potential, human development, and making sure it creates a better life for all. Where has it succeeded? In the countries like, for example, your USA, the best capitalists of the world, the people who speak about that's the best form of capitalism. People sleep on the street, people are unemployed, people are homeless. So and again, when you say the success of capitalism, you must qualify what is the success of capitalism. Because because the interest we may have in terms of what success is may not be the same. Success may mean more companies, more people working, but without life. Without people being able to live, right? What capitalism does, it creates people who live for work. It reduces human beings to economic objects that must produce economic product. Other than that, you have no life. This is why if you go to the townships of KwaMashu, Ntuzuma, and Umlazi, people leave home at 4 o'clock and come back at 8. They have no life, no connection to their families, because we are objects of the economy, of the political system. This is why some of us then say capitalism has not succeeded. But it has succeeded for those who wanted to accumulate wealth. That is why in a country like South Africa, with so much resources, you've got a handful, a 1%, owning almost the majority of the economy of the country, owning the wealth of the country, and they call it that success. The fact that the miners of Marikana had to die for a 12,500 minimum wage in companies or in an industry which makes billions each and every year. You go to the belly of the earth to pick up a product of which 1 ounce of it can pay your whole month's salary and more. But you don't decide the price of this thing. You don't decide the share of your places get dug up every day and they get destroyed, but there's no development in the area. You find people that you are digging on the ground, but your children you can't pay for your children to go to school. There's no school in your area, but there's a mining town. These are the successes of capitalism. If people want to tell us that capitalism has succeeded, these are the successes of capitalism.
But don't you think, Zikalala, that posture to be achieved and realized, it needs some bit of dictatorship, the communism?
I mean, dictatorship, I mean, these days are used, words, concepts used rather loosely. I would say it needs a very strong leadership. It needs a very ethical leadership, principled leadership. It's and that is a very rare commodity in politics to find, especially in the space where capitalism is so prevalent. And because capitalism also is unethical.
True.
Capitalism says the leader of the country can live in a mansion off the votes of the people of the country while the people of that country go to sleep hungry. That's capitalism. And it justifies it and says, oh, they work hard, their job is serious. What do you think? They must get paid. You must think they must not eat. But you get to the office of the votes of the people who are hungry, but you go each and every day to bed, eating the best steaks, drinking the best whiskeys. But just across the streets, the people who put you in those offices are hungry. And when you flaunt the riches that you have got, when you go to campaign or you go to visit areas and you drive in the nice cars that you drive, you pass by the very same people. And then you claim that no, but our people must be inspired. But inspired by you wearing a watch of 300,000 rand in your hand while there are people who are hungry and you claim to lead them. One of the things that we usually say these days is that if you don't love them, you can't lead them. If you don't tremble at the sight of your people going to bed hungry, if you don't tremble as you drive in the city center and you see majority of young people stuck in Wunga and you don't tremble at that, you can't lead them. You can't lead. For me, that's the basic. That's why I'm saying, yes, communism is correct. Or socialism in much simpler terms for other people. Of course, some people will use this interchangeably, but in another time, we may go to the distinctions of why it is different. But for lack of a better concept, I'll use them interchangeably. I'm saying some people will say, yes, socialism is correct,
Yes.
but it needs an ethical leadership. Because at the end, it does not need the tyranny of the state also. You see, the state must be so democratized that it's not a tyranny over the people. That the people really have a say in terms of how their country gets to be run. Right? Which is why in other countries you'll find communes being built where people of KwaMashu have got some way of deciding how development happens in their area, which infrastructure needs to come first and all those things. There's a lot of work that we need to do to understand the structures that we need to build. And that will mean, I mean, we get accused in this country, we talk too much. I don't think we talk too much. I don't think we think too much. Because people think they know the things that we are speaking about or we agree upon, but we don't know.
Yeah, mhlambe zikalala ake ngibuze mfowethu ukhuluma kakhulu ngabantu laba abaphethe but umbuzo wami specifically sekutheni ama capitalists la ukhuluma ngawo ale South Africa, they are so entitled to ukuphatha izwe nokuthi banama gains are more than abantu kumele baba oppress. Do you think are we in a space of ukuthi ngakwazi ukubashintsha umqondo wabo? Because what I foresee ukuthi into ezokwenzeka sobona lento eyenzeka eAfrica yokuripha kwama votes ngendlela yokuthi kuthiwe lapha ama vote abe u80% kwenhlangano ashintshe overnight aseyanga. I foresee lokho indlela engiboni entitlement ingakhona kulabantu abangama capitalist. What is your say on that?
My brother, I will say this. There are 2 or 3 things that happen in Africa in the main with regards to liberation movements, and when the people realize that the state that has been built to deliver their liberation aspirations is incapable or is not delivering. Mostly it's after 20 years. That's why some people call it the 2 decades of power theory.
Yes.
What then happens is 2 of 3 things. One, it is the use of the might of the state, the repressive state apparatus. So the state, the military, the police, the courts, to repress the aspirations of the people.
Yes.
Or because people just start saying, no, we can't vote for these people, or these people need to go. Then the state will use its might to force the people to accept them as the leadership.
Jeez.
The second part of it is that, which is a bit more nicer, is that sometimes it's used as a combination, is that you will rig elections. Right? So you will have elections to justify that there is a democracy every 5 years, but you will make sure that the party that you want to win wins all the time. This is what happens in most countries. The other part of it is that liberation movement will start using radical rhetoric of reforms of the economy and the state to win back the goodwill of the people. These are 3 ways they do. In some countries, they do it as a combination. So if you differ with the state, you'll be taken to jail, you'll be arrested, you'll be beaten up by the military. Elections, when they come, because they know that some people may still be brave enough to vote them out, even though they have repressed them, so they will still make sure that there's mechanism to rig elections. To justify the other 2 forms, they will then say, no, we are being disliked because they are agents, counter-revolutionaries. We are pushing radical reform. Right? I wrote sometime that we have what we call in Africa, not political leadership, political merchants, political entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Who sell the good of hope or package hope as a commodity and sell it to our people. And in selling it to our people, they want access to political administration. That's all they want. There's no politician who's in politics because it's nice to be there. Because it's nice to be opposition. This is why when the opportunity comes for coalition governments, everyone starts scrambling. You'll see people who said they don't agree, start agreeing. Because the opportunity to access state administration is much more important than any other thing that some of these people say. Some of them, by the way, and to go to the point my brother was asking about, in terms of what the capitalist does. Now, these political merchants, there's 2 things. One, they use radical rhetoric to gain the goodwill of the people so that they can get to state administration. Mostly, those who use this are those who are not in favor or are not liked by the capitalists that run the economy. So, their only access in is the people.
Yeah.
Right? But of course, some of them, as they get in, they then start justifying to these people to say, but we're not going to disturb your things. Why are you fighting us? You get what I'm saying? Because the capitalists have got the machinery, my brother, to be able to fight people, to demonize people and turn them into demons. They have got the power to do so.
Yes.
On the other hand, you've got people who are in line or in favor or in the best interest of the capitalist.
Yeah.
Those people mostly don't speak radical reform. They speak reform, yes, but reform that does not fundamentally shift ownership patterns of the economy.
Yes.
Right? So then will the capitalists allow for this type of change? It does not happen. But one thing, my brother, that you must also think about is you don't appeal to the morality of capitalists because it doesn't exist. And you don't share, maybe it does exist, but you don't share the same moral compass. Your ethics are not their ethics. Your ethics may be, we can't eat when other people are hungry.
Yeah.
Their ethics may be, how much can I eat? How much more can I take? You see? So when you want to appeal to the moral compass of the capitalists, you are fighting a losing battle. You're not going to win. This is why since 1994, you've had a lot of opposition to reforms of the economy. The last point on that one, what you are asking, my brother, is, so if we can't appeal to the ethics and to the moral compass or the ethics of the capitalists, what do we do? The world, I put it this way in a much more mellow tone. Capitalists, there's only one way. The interests with them are different. So one must fall for the other to rise.
Yes.
I'm trying to put it in more in more simpler terms.
Yeah,
but there is no other way where the capitalist maintains his position and the working class maintain their position. One must lose their position in the economy for the other one to thrive.
Zigala, apart from you being a political commentator, you are a citizen in South Africa. Then I'll just ask a friendly question. Do you still have trust in the president that we are currently having now?
You see, the concept of trust is very different, it's very problematic. Because the question will be, if you say I still have trust, it must mean that I had it before and I'm now losing it. Or it's still maintained. The strategic focus of the government of South Africa, which currently is being led by Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa.
Yes, sir.
I don't have trust that it can deliver the liberation aspirations of our people. And this, for me, is not an individual issue. We see in South Africa, we've got a lot of politics of personalities, big man politics, and it's there all over Africa. That we think our issues are because of one individual. That if Ramaphosa goes, suddenly people will be free. I don't think so. We may, if Ramaphosa goes or Zuma goes and Mbeki goes, maybe if you think part of why the liberation aspirations of the people are not being implemented is because the person at the top is unwilling, then maybe you remove them. But you also need to have a much more deeper analysis of the structure as a whole.
The system
This is why that's why I have a problem with activists who don't speak about structure. I have a problem. I don't think they are worth their salt. Once you are an activist, in particular if you speak about social change, and you don't speak about the power structure, you don't speak about power, where it's located, who has it, how they got it and how they are utilizing it. You don't speak about the tyranny of the state. You don't speak about the structure in terms of how it's able to, with or without particular individuals, deliver the same result.
Jeez.
If you don't speak about that, then you are not, for me, in my books, you're not worth your salt. You are like someone who says, the apples of this tree are rotten, but you never ask yourself if there's the problem with the root of the tree.
Jeez.
So what you are doing, you every year you remove the rotten apples and you hope that better ones are going to come next year. But the tree it has a problem. You see? Yeah. So yeah, for me it's that I don't think I don't want to enter into this idea of trust him. For me, I have a problem with the structure.
Yes.
Tomorrow someone else will come. If they maintain the structure, we'll still have a problem.
Siyaguma local elections. I think towards the end of the year. What do you make of the new kid in the block, the MK party?
So, you know, in the beginning, in 2020, was it 2023? Yeah, 2023 December. I think as the party was launched, or as Jacob Zuma made a decision, I think I was one of the most interviewed political commentators or analysts on the topic of MK.
Yes.
At some point, I was accused of loving them too much. So I'm trying in my mind to be very careful in terms of how I deliver this next commentary, because again, I'm going to be accused. But because, of course, because we've been activists ourselves, we didn't just arrive as political commentators. We're activists ourselves, and we still believe ourselves that part of what we're doing is part of activism itself.
Yes.
I've got friends in the ANC, I've got friends in the IFP, I've got people I went to school with. I know people in MK, some of them I've worked with them, and what's called. So when I speak about politics of South Africa, sometimes most political parties, I've got people I know, and I've got relations with those parties.
Yes.
So that's the first thing. Of course, I've got a history with some leadership in the MK. Of course, now maybe we don't work together, but we've got a history.
Yes.
We know each other. You see, we can call each other, and I can ask questions in terms of the things that they're doing that I don't see. The same way I can ask in the ANC with some leadership that I know, or some people that I know there. But the problem when the MK started, it was what we call organized chaos. And that's one of the things that we spoke about in the beginning.
Yes.
This organized chaos worked from 16 December 2023 up until May 2024. It worked. It was chaotic. There were no real structures, no real branches and everything.
No conference.
No conference. But it was working. Because as much as to us, we're outside, it looked like chaos, but someone was organizing it somewhere. So this chaos that we spoke about, of just motorcades here and there, you don't know what's happening, you don't know who's the leader. Excuse me. You don't know who's the leader and all those things, but things are happening. At some time, that organized chaos worked. It also worked because the image of Jacob Zuma is worked, right? So I said in one platform sometime around those times, I mean, people can go check it out, that if we look at the statistics of the ruling party at the time where Zuma came from, which at least where we can at least deduct in terms of his impact on the electoral space. Zuma is a million and a half to 2 million. So between 1 million to 2 million vote man. That he can deliver those votes. And the statistics are there. I mean, people can, you can go and look how many votes Nelson Mandela got in 1994.
Yes.
Go look at Thabo Mbeki, led to ANC, how many votes it got. And go look at 2009 to 2014, how much the ANC got. And look at Ramaphosa, you will see two common things.
Yes.
The most popular leader of the ANC, post Johannes Mandela, with Winnie Mandela's, Chris Hannies, and what's it called, is Jacob Zuma.
True that.
The most popular politician in the country is Jacob Zuma.
True that.
Is he the most loved? I don't know. But the most popular person, without saying anything.
Yeah.
I mean, he's rivaled by like people like your Julius Malemas and like people who don't have to say much. If you heard that Zuma is going to be somewhere, people are get excited. They don't know what he's going to say, but they're there. And this is the basis upon which the MK got its big support in 2004. One, people were, the state project we spoke about earlier of the ANC was under scrutiny, and people were protesting the state in terms of its ability to deliver liberation aspirations. They were looking for an alternative. But some of those people were looking for an alternative which they knew, they were familiar with. Remember, alternatives have always been built in this country. I mean, myself, in my past life as a political activist, I have participated in movements where we're trying to build an alternative. Unfortunately, maybe it didn't succeed for many other reasons. We'll speak about them another day. But the MK presented a familiar territory. Also, it attracted people who at least have a history of organizing and mobilizing. Because people of the ANC, you may like them, or people who come from the ANC tradition, you may like them or not like them. I've been in politics, my brother. The best organizers, mobilizers come from those places. I know this because I've tried to organize politically. I know that I'm a BC person, a black consciousness person through and through.
Yes.
one of the things we struggle with in those spaces, Black consciousness, Pan-Africanism, of course, because the tyranny of the white supremacist state and all those things, but what we struggle with is organizing and mobilizing people. We may have all the radical rhetoric, all the theoretical correctness, but being in touch with the people and being able to draw them out from their homes becomes very difficult. The people of the ANC struggle very little with that. You must check all parties that come from the ANC. They almost have the similar trait. So, going to these elections, a much more organized MK will be able to just go above that organized chaos, because the organized chaos delivered 2 million votes. But to get beyond that, you must start showing more stability, more strategic focus, more solutions, but be more in touch with the ground. Do not lose your face as a radical reform party. And I think in areas like eThekwini, the metros, the urban areas, you may find some ground there, but you will need to offer more than just, we'll change the country.
Because follow-up question lapho, iti uma ubabuka ke bona right now, do they have the capacity to lead if they are elected?
It's very difficult to answer that question. Because, one of the things the MK party has done, I've seen it in government, is try to attract people who have participated in government before. And I think that is a good thing.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of...
Yeah, I think that is a good thing, because new parties struggle with that. But also the trick of the local government space, in particular, or governance in South Africa, is not much whether you have a mayor who's been a mayor before. Is whether you can, in the municipality, for example, attract strong administrators, skillful administrators, experienced administrators. And administrators are professionals. It's a city manager is someone who is a professional. You can hire them for 5 years. You know what I'm saying? It's not someone who gets elected. These are people who their work, their life work is administration. You need to make sure that you...
but some are there due to cadre deployment.
Of course. That's another time we'll speak about cadre deployment. Because also I come from an activist background. I don't have much of a problem with cadre deployment on principle. I have a problem with when we deploy people to places or positions which we know they don't have capacity to fall. When we've got other people who are capable who can run. For me, that's the problem. But cadre deployment, Chief, you're not going to win elections on a ticket of socialism and go bring a city manager who's a neoliberal to run your state. You're not going to do it because your constituent is going to fight with you.
Yes.
You said working class is going to be free. You bring someone who brings the tyranny of the capitalist. You get what I'm saying? Cadre deployment is fine. Whatever you call it, it's fine. The problem is, with the MK party, if we can get back to that, is if you're a political leadership, you become a mayor, an ESCOM member, not called. Yours is to inspire a new direction, right? A new energy in the city. But the people who deliver the municipality are the people who work for the municipality. But your focus on what and how you're driving them is important. So if you have a mayor, for example, that is laissez-faire, for example, the city of eThekwini, there is a problem in the inner city. It's being degraded. There are people sleeping on the street, hijacked buildings and all those things. And you as a mayor don't speak about those issues and how the city needs to make sure that the administrators develop a program to make sure that we are able to regenerate the inner city. Then when the inner city is not regenerated, we must blame you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the people who work for the city will not just wake up and do things. Because remember, there are policies in municipalities that they are following.
Yes.
We must then say, okay, this policy doesn't work. We must have a policy on inner city regeneration. Part of it is that we need to expropriate every building in the city that its owner is not there, that has been hijacked, is being used for criminal activities. And what do we do with it? We then regenerate those buildings and we offer them up for social housing. I stay in the city as a young professional myself.
Yes.
Hey, bra, kunzima ukurent eThekwini. I'm saying now I'm speaking just for young professionals and people who stay in the city. Hey, bra kurizima urent eThekwini. Kuyabiza ukurent eThekwini. So we need a regulation around social housing and rentals and all those things and buying of property. We need to create a situation whereby the city of eThekwini looks beautiful again. I'm just making an example with eThekwini ngoba ngihlala kulona. But this is the same true thing about Johannesburg and other cities. But which will mean, for example, if an MK says they want to run the country or run the local government, it is that strategic focus of coming in and saying, these are the 10 priorities. How do we make sure that we have got a staff complement and we have a plan that we can inspire with the staff complement to implement to achieve these 10 things. If we can do that, my brother, you will win elections, I believe. But winning elections is one thing. You can do it. I mean, the MK got 45% in KwaZulu-Natal in the last election. Can they get 45% again? I still believe. I mean, it's one of the few parties, the MK, that has been in charge with the ground. But there's another thing that's happening in the MK as my last point. I'm sorry, I speak too much, my brother. Sorry. The other things that are happening in the MK is that everyone is a leader.
Jeez.
Everyone has a voice. Everyone is entitled to be heard and do something. Everyone is starting their own thing attached to the MK.
Yeah. Ama-alliance.
Kuningi nje, kuningi. Kuyaphithizela. Some of these groupings, you can see they are doing good work. But some of them, for example, I mean, I know because some of the guys who are running this organization, I know them, right? Because they are my generation. The labor and the civic organization, LACO. It started as MK Labor Desk. You see that now you have LACO. Now I know that they seem to still be associating themselves with the MK. But I struggle to see. I'm normally struggling to see. I hope if they want the MK to win elections, they will be able to take the work that they are doing on the ground around labor issues and civic issues and attach it to the MK brand. So that people see that it is the MK doing this.
But umbuzo ukhona lapho ukuthi yona ke i-top leadership iba recognizile. That's because you hardly see them speaking about MK like.
Yeah, you see the problem enginayo mina ileyo. That's why ngithi everyone in the MK wakes up because maybe they're not finding expression, are able to control something, then they start their smaller nyana thing. Then of course, because the MK is the most popular organization now, you attach it to MK brand, but you have no intention of it being an MK thing. Now the leadership also did not pronounce to say we need this type of organization, we need that, we need that. But they are accepting these things and not saying anything about them. But also they are not saying anything about them means that they have not claimed them as theirs. And for me, that's the problem. But the last point I was making earlier is MK khuluma wonke umuntu bafethu. And everyone when they speak they say me I'm from MK. And you come sometimes you see things that are not consistent with what the leadership is saying or what other members of the MK party are saying. It seems in the MK party wonke umuntu has got their own idea of what the MK party is and stands for and what it needs to do. That chaos is not sustainable, my brother.
Yes.
You can't. I mean, for 2 years, 3 years, you can sustain it, but it's not sustainable for a long time. You can't. Abantu basa South Africa bakwazi confuse why ithina. If, for example, I was a member of MK, yabona ngoba nila ku Durban Network, anikwazi ukukhuluma umfowenu lo asho kunye nawe usho kunye. Kodwa nonke nithi ni Durban Network, anikwazi. Which means when unenye idea ukuthi yini le, nayo unenye idea ukuthi yini le. Kodwa nonke nithi konke nikwenza nikwenzela lento. Kuyi problem uke. But lokho kuqhamuka because many of the people in particular, I mean some of them who come from some other organizations. They have frustration of not being able to lead. Abanye uthola ukuthi la yaphuma khona be leader but they frustrated noma bema aspirations of leader. Uyafika la vele MK ama structures akabi khona kahle kwezinye indawo. So uthola opportunity ukuthi ngathi enga lead. Athi usathi uya leader MK ke kunenye into ke leadership iyashintshwa yabo. But that's consistent with Jacob Zuma's type of leadership. Uzuma umsholozi, if we have seen him, even when he was running the state, he didn't seem too afraid to change.
Yes.
Now, Minister of Works and Minister. Lendo, if you go to the constitutional courts and high courts and on administrative law and what's called, and you will find a lot of judgment. Students who do law will tell you that Zuma, in terms of constitutional law, administrative law, has got lots of case laws that they study about. About the community presidential prerogative. Sadly, is one of Sholo's. How according to a presidential prerogative, the president might appoint a minister, Agabuz, or appoint a lead, go pali a constitution, ukuthi une prerogative yakhe. They serve at his behest and his discretion. So I'm saying uZuma uyijwayele lento. But enye into ekhona ku-MK last point is that everyone is listened to. Yabo kunalento nje ukuthi ngoba because akuthi conference ayikho.
Yes.
Now the issue is that Umsholozi seems the mistake I think Umsholozi has made. I think now ngiyambone enye into abade benze Limpopo. Which I think is a new model of how leadership gets elected.
Yes.
At least abantu ama-regions are participate to semfuna ubani, then the structure gets recorded. I think that's, for me, is much better. It's closer to an elective conference, but it's also closer to the appointment way that they want to use. But the issue ekhona is that kunento ekhona ku-MK, yabo, because of this way of electing leadership, it seems as if the conference has been replaced with Msholozi. So there's no conference, but you can just drive to Nkandla and then ubuye ushuthe isithombe eNkandla ukuthi ubukhona mhlawumbe uphuza itiye noma idrink noma ubamba iqatha lembuzi la kwaZuma bese ushuthe isithombe usiposte ku Facebook bese ukukhombisa ukuthi hayi nawe ubaba uyakulalela then uzobuya sekubothi kubantu ubaba uthe. You remember in the FK bebeyikhuluma lento ukuthi kufanele siqede lento ukuthi ubaba uthe. Some people are still using it. And for me it's dangerous for the strategic growth of the MK. Ukuthi you can't have a party like that. You can't have a party where people believe ayengenza noma yini because mina ubaba ngixozi naye.
Mhlambe mfokazi kalala, there's a newly formed structure lesi
presidential task team.
Yeah. Yes. Do you think mhlambe ngenzeka lokho kuphele ngoba it seems like yiba sebezo controller more, and even ikuyona i-press conference yakhona waye busy eleke ikhulume iphinda lonto iyaphela manje into yokuthi nomba azikhulumela into ayithandayo.
I think that's the idea. Part of also the idea I think he was doing when I was listening a bit of that is that to make sure ukuthi he's always represented.
Yeah.
Remember, uZuma is the lifeblood of that organization.
Yes.
Yeah, but many people abafuna ukulalela omnye umuntu balalela ngoba balalela uZuma kuphela. Even as we leadership ikhona abayilaleli balalela ukwazi bona ukuthi ubaba wathi. Now, you then build a presidential task team to make sure that you are able to deploy people in places where Zuma is supposed to speak, at least engaba ne representative yabantu bakhe, where he needs to be represented and what to call. I don't think it will end much that thing. Yokuthi ubaba uthe.
Yes.
Because it will not mean just appointing people to a structure. It will mean Msholozi himself refusing people coming to his home without his invite. Refusing this idea that people come to his house and start speaking about the organization. And these are things we are hearing, my brother, from people. So I know ukuthi I know sizodrayiva sokhuluma nobaba. I know sohamba sokhuluma nobaba. Remember ngithi sina ngoba ngisho ukuthi because we've been in the political space for some time, in our little way, by the way, I don't want to over-exaggerate myself. I'm not a big person. So, but in my little way, we've been involved in politics for some time. So, khona abantu esibazi abanye ontanga yethu sebeyalida. Yabo? So, in private conversations, ikhona lento ukuthi hayi no afethu umyeke ubani so hamba sokhuluma nobaba bazoyilungisa. So, Umsholozi fanele kube uyena othi umuntu ongezi la ekhaya engabizwanga yimina. And mawuza la ekhaya ungezi uzokhuluma ngenhlangano. Ungeza mawuyivakashela mina ngoba siyazana ungakhulumi ngenhlangano ngoba mawukhuluma ngenhlangano uzomela ngibize the rest of the leadership ukubuza ukuthi uthini because into eyenzakalayo kuphunywa ngapha kunywe nomsholozi kubuye sekutshelwa abantu ukuthi hey lento yeni iyabhedela nobaba uvumile ukuthi nokuthi
kune sesiyivala nje indaba ye-MK. Ngifisa sithinte le point leli lama illegal foreigners. Ukuthi a lot have been said by the ground forces, the MK, with regards to this issue. Kodwa i-top leadership kuncane ekushoyo ngendaba yama ile asazi kahle stand sabo ukuthi bona bami kuphi. There was even a time uspokesperson wabo uNhlamulo Ndlela akhuluma okuthile ukuthi le gama elisetshenziswayo alihle for ukuthi lebule abantu bokufika. Okubonisayo ukuthi kunokuhlukana la, abanye bathi abahambe, abanye I mean bakhuluma okunye. So kuthini ukuphawula kwakho ngale confusion?
The biggest problem with the MK, that's why I spoke about the organized chaos earlier, is that the MK remains a mobilized force. They are trying so hard. Of course, also we must be very lenient with them. They are about 3 years old. So they haven't been able to build an organization. They are trying, but they so the problem
so they are in the process
comes from organizing. When you are organized, you know, if, for example, in parties which are better organized than the MK, or much older than MK, better organized, there's a coherence sometimes in terms of policy. Because if EMK shawai logo, there is a policy, but that policy is not almost cascaded down to everyone. So, and also there is not much of political education on the policies of the party. Not just what is happening in the world and what's called. Just educating, okay, Tina simele loku. Now, lokho kwenza ukuthi kube ne disconnect between the ground forces and the leadership. Because ama ground forces, remember, abantu basemphakathini. When you are organized, this is what happens. Is the policy positions or ideological positions taken by the party needs to be cascaded down to the ground forces. When you are organized, when you reach a state of political organization, in particular in terms of the discourse of the party, that's where you see membership on the ground speaking a language your organization. Currently, you have a mobilized force. Kunabantu abasondele eduze kwe-MK.
Yes.
Fundiswa kahle ukuthi yini lela ingoba mhlambe futhi nakhona phezulu bakhona abanye abangazi ukuthi yini lesikuyona esiyilida kodwa bayayilida. Now into ekhona ukuthi labantu abalaphezansi are mobilized. Shuthi ngamanye amazwi ngisho ukuthi abantu ababizwe kwathiwa hey senze ukuthi but mase befika la someone must organize them. When you build a branch, mass mobilization, political education, mass communication, you get what I'm saying? Those things are elements that you inculcate in the organization to say in mass mobilization is ukubiza abantu like mass omasha la ubhala ama pamphlets sizomasha dropping we have about 10,000.
Yes,
labo bantu you must convert them from a mobilized mass or mobilized force into an organized mass. Right?
Yes.
Abanye abantu kwezinye indawo bawukhuluma indaba zo quantity over quality, quality over content over form. Ilabantu be ideology ke labo abazama ukuchaza, but what you need to do, what the people who are mass mobilized must be converted to a mass organization. This is why you have a disconnect in the party. Another thing is that inside the party itself kunento eyiningi obonayo ukuthi one can communicate but is not politically astute. Abona ke a political commentator, my brother, in an organization needs to have a real grasp of the politics of the organization and be a master communicate. You can't be one of the two, you lack. Ungaba uyazi yonke ipolitika nje ukwazi ucommunicate kodwa spokesperson. Ube a leader organization, you can command people. You know, but awukwazi ukukhuluma ipolitiki organization. But abantu uyakwazi ukuthi makuthiwa siyele siyale, but awukwazi ukubachazela politically why kumele ukuyele ngayiwale. So leyo nto leyo ke ingenye ama challenge akhona in political organization, but is much more evident in the MK because the MK party is new.
Sesivala nje mfethu sifaka ngegeopolitics. Ake sibheke lapha iMelika ithumele amasosha more than 40,000 lapha ePersian Gulf. Kwase phinde kuthunyelwa nezikhali kunemkhumbi ephinde futhi nayo yathunyelwa. It is somewhere around the Persian Gulf as well, you know. Okuwukuthi impi noma umbango omkhulu la ukudinwa kweMelika ukuthi Iran iproducer inews lokho esithi inuclear. So mfowethu ngifuna ukuzwa ngempela ukuphawula kwakho ukuthi ngempela ngabe ngempela lokhu does it symbolizes the state of war?
A part of me, my brother, does not believe that we are going to see a World War III anytime soon. But for strategic realigning of the world, we will always see threats of a war. Because countries like the United States must always show force and show that they are still in charge and be able to deter enemies and to be able to use their force to push away conflicts and to assure allies that they still are with them. You get what I'm saying? Because this idea, it ain't just now. I mean, I think we saw it. We see it with, for example, with Palestine. We also saw it with Venezuela, for example. That we don't have much of an East-West anymore. Yes, it's there in terms of concepts in international relations.
Yes.
But it's not there anymore. The reason why I don't think it's there is because the politics of the 21st century are led much more by economic interest than just a simple ideological turf war. That, no, we are communists, we're in the East. Wow, we're capitalists, we're in the West, therefore anything in the East we fight it. No. What are the economic interests of the country in relation to the West or the East and whatnot? That drives what we go. So that's why I'm saying war is costly, not just in resources. It's costly in terms of human life. It's costly in terms of human potential and many other things. It's costly. I don't think we are going to see it. But the US, in particular with the current president they have.
Yes.
By the way, the strategic focus of the US has never changed. We must first start there. It's never changed. The US seeks to be the unipolar, the one power in the world that controls everything. Of course, then gathers its allies and its proxies to achieve this goal of leading the world. Whether it's through quiet diplomacy or overt conservatism, if I can put that word, or like Donald Trump, where Donald Trump is not playing. As Donald Trump goes to a podium and say, no, we're going to blow bombs so and so. Donald Trump is proud to go on a platform and say he arrested a president of a country and the oil now is theirs and the new president are going to work with them. He's not proud to say he has flouted international law. But Barack Obama smiles and does the same thing. Kills Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. Smiles and does diplomacy and go around and like Bill Clinton go around shaking people's hands and George W. Bush almost like a Trump does not play, comes from the Republican, is a non-nonsense.
The one who attacked Afghanistan.
You see? So this idea of make America great again, which other people love, Maka. Okay, when America was great, what was happening to the world? And when America becomes great again, what will happen to the world? So we must also, when we love things, we love concepts. Make America great again, and also we adopt these things. No, we say no.
With whose resources?
With whose resources, to whose class interest. You know, some of us, we always ask that question. Yes, make America great again. Hooray! America is an independent country, must be made great. But to whose class interest must America be great again?
So others should be compromised.
Yeah. So what is happening in the Middle East? In the Persian Gulf is just America exercising its force in trying to make sure that it assures its allies that it's in charge, but also makes sure that it makes America great again. Trump America has been disrespected in the platform in the world.
True.
Right? And its allies are almost disrespected. They now can be challenged by some people. He wants to make sure that no one can dare stand in front of a podium and challenge America. And this was happening at some time because America has tempered with the democracies of many countries, has replaced leadership and all those things. So now you have a president that says we must make America great again. But for him to justify, and this is where right-wing extremism or conservatism is coming in. And there's a rise of this, by the way, in the world. If you see the austerity measures, the rise of the markets, right-wing politics in terms of narrow nationalism that is rising in the world. And as it rises, there's also the issue of Palestine. And of course, you see what is happening in Sudan, the idea of Nigeria and other countries. There's right-wing politics are rising. And then we can even see them here in South Africa. I mean, right-wing politics are everywhere. But to whose interest? Now, Israel in the Middle East is a strategic position for the USA. And you can't threaten that state because their access or their power base is placed there. Then they've got other proceedings, but that's our power base. They must assure Israel that they will not allow anyone to threaten them. And in the space, who threatens the dominance of Israel? Iran.
Yes, Iran.
Right? So Iran must be shown that it can't do that. You must constantly threaten it so that it pulls back. But Iran over the years has always shown that they are not scared much. I mean, the Ayatollah is not one person to be scared and all those things. But of course, as things are developing now, you can see that there's starting to begin some level of carefulness in the Iran government. So for me, it's to answer. I mean, I've taken a long time to answer your question, but I don't see World War III, my brother.
But
are there going to be proxy wars fought for the interest of countries like the US, yes.
But ake sibuke Iran the way is positioning ngakhona njengamanje. Uma ubuka if it goes to a position of a battlefield, can they stand the USA?
Hey, the USA, my brother, in terms of war experience, and this is not just in terms of its in terms of its technical prowess, where it has the bigger weapons and all those things. It's not just that, but it is the experience of war. Has America fought wars more than any other country? Maybe yes. Won, lost. I mean, of course, they still cut up at Vietnam and all those things. But I'm saying, when it comes to that, I don't see many countries winning against the US. Not because they don't have the capacity in terms of technical equipment or the manpower, but because the US has got experience. I mean, the precision with which they arrested the Venezuelan president, by the way. I mean, we don't agree with it, but we marvel at the fact that a country can an army can enter another country quickly like that, take a president, not a civilian, a president,
whole president,
a president. No, you must respect the prowess of the US, but also respect the fact that the US does not fight wars alone.
True.
It has a lot of proxies who are willing to go next to it. Unfortunately, countries like Iran have got allies and proxies that when push comes to shove, they're not willing to come out and support. We saw it in Venezuela, right?
Yes.
Did you see in Venezuela? Venezuela has got friends in the world, my brother. A lot of friends. But when push came to shove and they needed friends, their friends were nowhere to be seen. You see? Another question you must ask yourself is that as the global south, as so what are people would say, the non-whites of the world or the colored peoples of the world. I mean, I'd like to use black mostly. I use black, but I'm just saying for common lexicon. Who are our friends? As the proletariat, the working class, the poor of the world, who are our friends? That we can claim that in times of crisis, are going to protect us.
We may look to the countries that are within the BRICS.
Yeah, I'm saying in our minds. I'm not saying maybe it's a rhetorical question. We may not have a response for it, but I'm just saying we must ask ourselves that question. That when push comes to shove, let's make an example in South Africa. When push comes to shove, and South Africa is attacked, whether through a coup, a manufactured coup to remove a president, or the creation of civil disobedience, when South Africa becomes attacked, who in the world will come to our defense?
The one that are within the BRICS, our brothers, by virtue.
Do we have a military cooperation with those people?
No.
A political cooperation. I mean, I love BRICS as a possibility. But as the years go by, I'm starting to doubt whether or not BRICS, for example, stands against a Group 7. Group 8, Group of 8, right?
Yeah.
Stands against a Group of 8, for example.
Which?
I'm starting to doubt whether BRICS as a bloc of the East is able to go military and politically go against our aggressors. Or is it a strategic block of lobbying?
Yeah.
And again, as I said, my brother, these are just questions. People may answer for me, no, BRICS is this. But I'm saying, when push comes to shove in real politics, where things are happening, where people are coming in to take our resources, they are removing our president. We having people in the world who are going to fly in fighter jets, drones to push back? I don't think so. I think we will find out that day that actually we don't have friends. We are alone, and we've been acting, man, in the political arena in the interest of our friends in the world.
Yeah, true.
But the question becomes: are our friends willing to act in our best interest? In particular, because we can't sustain this idea of being a non-aligned friend of everyone, a non-troubling state South Africa tries to do. Especially as we continue to push in the world for democracy to be peace and all those things. We are at some point we're going to end up exposing ourselves. And I think we are starting to do that.
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
our work with Israel, for example, is starting to expose us to the Zionist Jewish lobby.
Yes.
And things are being done. And we have suspicions of, for sometimes, conspiracy theories that things are happening that show that this money and this organizing is here. It's just waiting for a few things, but you can see the elements we've seen in other countries are happening here. My question is, are we ready? And do we have friends who are going to defend us? Or do we act in the interest of our friends, but our friends may not have the capacity to defend us?
Mfowethu, last question. Usase lapho ngifuna siyithathe siyiphonse Western Cape, Cape Town. Istand right now se South Africa. Siyayigxeka iIsrael ngezenzo zayo ePalestine. Kodwa kunezinkulumo ezithi white people in the Western Cape are doing by all means to mobilize the Israelis in the Western Cape, giving them sites by numbers, giving them, nationality in numbers to make sure that there's a state that is created there which belongs to the Israelis. Sizibona sesendaweni whereby we've got Palestinians ourselves that we support. At the same time, we've got the enemies of the Palestinians, which are the Israelis within the same land. How dangerous is this?
My brother, as I said to you, I'm very careful. I'm very careful, but I think I'm too small to put myself in danger. But I also must be very careful. I believe the Zionist agenda is somewhere in this country already, and has been here for some time. I believe, it's a theory I have in terms of looking at the things you speak about. I believe that the Zionist agenda, together with its resources, both technical, monetary resources, are in this country. I believe this in my theories. I believe it. It's a danger that we put ourselves in if we continue to allow this. But the question is, do we come out strongly and say we go to the Western Cape and anyone from Israel is ejected out? Do we follow up, for example, on our parliamentary resolution to I don't think the resolution says cut ties. I think the resolution says cut ties with Israel, remove their what you call this thing? Their diplomatic office, their embassy, embassy, yeah. But we then decided after to downgrade it instead of remove them. But now we've just expelled this other one because of the things he was doing in the Eastern Cape. You see, those things are not by coincidence. Those things of Israel doing those things in the Eastern Cape, and I don't think it's coincidence. This is just my opinion. Opinion is not fact, né?
Yeah.
So I'm not. This is not saying this is factual. I'm saying this is my opinion. It's how I see things. I believe Jewish man, not Jewish man. I don't want to say Jewish man because when you say Jewish man, you are speaking about all Jews. Not all Jews are pro-Israel, by the way, and its agenda on Palestine. So it's the Zionist sect of the Jewish communion which supports Israel, which supports the expansion of Israel and the genociding of the people of Palestine. Those resources are here in this country, and they've been here for some time. And you've got people in this country, in particular of white descent, Afrikaners and the like, who are in cahoots and who supports that agenda. Right? Because they still romanticize and are still nostalgic about apartheid. They wish apartheid was still in South Africa. Some of them, when they speak about Cape Town or the Cape and its independence, they are nostalgic about a white state in South Africa. Right? Even though South Africa is a white supremacist country.
Yes.
Administered by black administrators. Neo-colonial in its nature, in its maintenance of white European Western modernity and domination over cultural, social, political, and legal affairs of this country. But they have a problem that it is still being administered in a way that almost tries to affirm the positionality and the humanity of the so-called disenfranchised blacks. Yes, we agree. Black people in the main, in the proper analysis of the world, are the way we live our lives are not human-like. You get what I'm saying? And this is not to say we are not human. It's to say the structure of colonialism as it lives, what it does, it dehumanizes abanye abantu. So it puts them under non-livable conditions and maintains and that's how the lives of other people are maintained. This is the same thing that happened when you are going to genocide people. When you are going to oppress people, you must first do what? Degrade them to subhumanness or non-being. You must then proclaim them as not human. Because you are now must justify why they must be killed en masse. Right? That's why in some countries people are called aliens, they are called slaves, they're not human beings. They're slaves. So that when you kill them, no one will ask you why you are killing them. Because this is not when you rape them,
it's people of no value.
You see, these are not even say people of no value. It's not human beings. Therefore, you can't commit a crime against them. I don't know if you
It's not a sin.
You see, it's not a sin for you to rape a non-being. This is why black Africans were raped en masse at the height of colonialism. But the first thing you did is that you said this is a beast. This is not a human being. So when you rape them, no one will say, but why are you raping? When at that time, when you raped a white human, there will be uproar. This is why there's a lot of work that we need to do in understanding why, for example, violence against black people gets the type of attention it gets, and why violence against white people gets the focus that it gets. It is because of how the world is structured. And if we are going to change this world we live in, my brother, then, as I said in the beginning, look at the structure of the society. So what laws, what institutions are there? What is their orientation? What do you do to make sure that, for example, you promote black marriages, black love, and black communities and the like? What do you do with the structure of the state to make sure that that becomes because African communities did not spring up from the sky. The state made sure that white fathers work, white mothers are able to have an income or a way of living. White children go to school, but they don't work too much. They must have time to play and be together and be a family. Our fathers were taken to Johannesburg, our mothers to the kitchen, us, we work 5 kilometers, 20 kilometers to school. So there is no time for us to be a community.
It's a completely split.
Yes, we all have something to do. We're always busy with something. We don't have time to be together. That's why we don't love each other. We don't love each other so much because we don't know each other. And our positionality in the world. For example, the way it's structured is that ukuze mina ngithola umsebenzi endaweni ethize fanele wena ukuphuma. So it's a competition, it's a red race of getting into township. Angazi liphi la show lazi mina ngikholela eNtuzuma naseMatendeni. eNtuzuma ungena ngomnyango omgwaqo uphuma umgwaqo. Ngabo le nto leyana engathana time na day masinesikhathi fanele siyibuthi khawuthi. Yilast jaha ukuphuma khona so kumnyango kufanele ukuthatha amagundane wavayilandini bese uyakhombisa ukuthi kuphunywa la kuphela. Bese uvula intuba encane ukuthi uphuma igundane elilodwa ngesikhathi. Ukuze kugcine kuphunywa la, kuzogcina ngaphunywanga yazi. Ngoba kuzogijinywa kuyo lapha kufike kushayisana bese kubulawana sodwa. Ngoba sonke sine competition yokuphuma. Now ipoint engizama ukuyidrive is that there's a lot of work that needs to be done to build black communities. Real black communities, not just ukuthi sihlala ngandawonye. To able to value your life and to know that the actions that I take may endanger your life, so I'm not going to take them. And go back into understanding not this bastardization of Ubuntu that we have now, where even white people and what Ubuntu means.
Yes.
That is the crux. But we can't get to that if we then do what Bigo had said to us. To pump life into the empty shell that is a black person. To create and to strive towards a true humanity. Then we can, once we become human beings, once we are able to assert to the world that black people are human beings, then we can start deciding what law do we want for ourselves as human beings? But when the world has decided that you are not a human, no matter how much you want to speak about worldly affairs
Yes.
of human beings, your voice is not going to be heard. Other people are going to decide for you what law can apply to you. But when you fight for humanity, for you to be a human being, with the ability to decide your own destiny,
Yes.
then you can start saying, no, I want this economic system, I want this law, I want this, I want this, I want this. Thank you.
Nganza kwethu hayi besinothobani fokazikala lwageqa wonke amagula mfowethu sesivala nje ezikala mhlawumbe abafuna ukuthola kuma socials umi kanjani
Ngisebenzisa uFacebook kakhulu. Kodwa ke abanye abantu bazoba disappointed as I grow older. I don't have much of my political opinion on social media. Because unfortunately mina ngizalo ududu yabo owamasondo. Kwadukuza ayi wa 25 eDorenkop. One of the things uNkulunkulu anginikayo zona ngisakhula kwakuyi problem kumina because we always get teased about it. As I grow older I decided to accept it. Ngiyakhuluma bra. And for me that's what I prefer. So I'm a public speaker, I facilitate, I teach some of the things that I know a bit, and of course public comment and the like. So we can reach out to each other on socials in terms of how we do the work that we do. It's the work that I do for a living.
Yes.
You see, it's a vocation of love. It's a work of a labor of love. It's a vocation for me. It's what also makes sure that at least ngiyakwazi ukuvuka ngithola into yokugeza ekseni. Yabo ngiyakwazi ukuthi ngibambise inkwanyana. So singaxoxisana on socials. If you are just coming to look for my public opinion, you may not get it all the time, but you'll get some of the questions I'm asking myself. So you'll get Zigalala Tobani on Facebook.
Yes.
And then you'll also get what I'm doing where. At least from there.
Yes.
I speak a lot. I travel a lot to try to speak. I work with NPOs and what you call, I work with different organizations. I'm one person that you can put me anywhere. You see?
Yes.
And as long as nje sixoxisane kahle ngezinto ezisiza ukuthi sikwazi ukuba lapho mfethu noma ngathi ngaye imtubatuba kwamhlaba yalingana kwamasha awukho la ngafiki khona. So but ke sixoxa kangcono kuba socials.
Yes.
And I think my socials also has my WhatsApp number, but my WhatsApp number is for you not to abuse it. Unfortunately, I don't do the thing, and I don't do the thing. No. I don't do those. I'm a human being. Nami ngumuntu ngenza ezinye izinto, but anginankinga of having discourse, and I love it. I mean, one of my friends Mlaudi will say ideas must be tested in the fire. That's why we must always discuss, because if we don't discuss, my brother, so look, siyavumelana ndasivumelana yabo sitshela ukuthi sihamba sonke kanti wena ufuna ukuye egoli mina ngeke but ngoba siyagijima sihamba sonke siku N3 silokhu siyendawo eyodwa ngibamba mina wena usujike Harry Smith mina ngiqhubeka ukuthi hayi awulamthinta kanti no but sinjalo mfethu ngumfana nje ozalelwe emakhaya ngenhlanhla ngakhuliselwa elokishini Ntuzuma iNanda ngase ngifunda nakwaMashu of course at some stage ngafunda e-University of Natal. But yeah mfethu ngicabanga ngumuntu ofana nabanye abantu. It's just that mhlambe abanye bethu they do lezi zinto esi interested on a bit more. So I think about politics a bit more than abanye abantu. But I don't think khona umuntu ongacabanga ipolitiki.
Yes.
The last point I want to tell you is this, ngivalelisa nje kubantu. There is a danger of a rise of wokeness in this country. And wokeness is awareness that is not organized. It is information that is not organized to knowledge. And it is dangerous because the woke are very confident in and are very forceful to speak about their newly acquired information and awareness. What we should strive for more is consciousness, because consciousness has got knowledge, is organized, is directed, it is aware of the implications of the knowledge that it possesses and its implication to the world. But wokeness, it's nice, man. We can talk about everything. But once we try to organize that it becomes very difficult. That's what some of us strive for. We're not saying we're the conscious, but we strive for consciousness. With that, I thank you, my brother, for inviting me in. It has been a long time coming. I see the work that you are doing.
Yes.
Continue doing it. We need more platforms where we could air our views, but we must be responsible with those platforms.
True.
We must be responsible with the platforms some of us are being given to voice out things. This is why I try to be very careful with the things that I say,
Yes, sir.
so that I understand and you understand and all of us understand the responsibility we have towards humanity. It's not about being popular.
Yes.
That I'm going to appear on YouTube. Right? Yes, YouTube will come and go, but what is the impact of the things that I say to other people and humanity?
True
So that, my brother, I hope I said nothing here that disturbs the liberation of black people and the continued strive for freedom. Other than that, ngibonga ithuba.
What a insightful conversation. Ebesina nomfokazi kalala uThobani kanza kwethu sivala njalo kuhlelo lo iDurban Network. I am your host Usabela Mfokandabase. Ngithi nje kuwena bake babonana ngani yakwethu baphinde babonana. Danko.
Hammer